The Ritz-Carlton ballroom glittered like a diamond vault cracked open. 300 of Manhattan's wealthiest patrons circulated beneath crystal chandeliers, their reflections multiplying across mirrored walls until the room seemed to contain thousands. The annual Children's Hospital benefit had long ago ceased being about children and had become a battlefield of social positioning, where donations were ammunition and designer gowns were armor. Caleb Matthews adjusted his navy suit jacket, a decent J. Crew number he'd purchased 3 years ago for job interviews. The right sleeve was slightly frayed at the cuff, a detail he'd noticed only after arriving. He stood near a marble column, nursing a single glass of complimentary champagne, watching. The suffocating perfume cloud, Clive Christian and La Prairie and whatever else cost more than his monthly rent, mingled with the scent of truffle-infused hors d'oeuvres that circulated on silver trays. Every few seconds, crystal clinked against crystal as toasts were made to nothing in particular. Just the sound of wealth acknowledging itself. "You don't belong here." The voice came from his left. A woman in her 60s, dripping in diamonds, her face stretched into permanent surprise by a surgeon's hand. "I have an invitation," Caleb replied, not looking at her. "Everyone has an invitation," she said. "That doesn't mean everyone should accept." Caleb took a slow sip of champagne. His stillness was unnatural in this environment where everyone seemed to vibrate with nervous energy, shifting, preening, turning to see who might be watching. He remained as fixed as the column beside him. "My daughter is waiting in the car with a sitter," he said finally. "I won't be long." The woman's eyebrows attempted to rise but met resistance from her cosmetic procedures. She drifted away, already forgetting him. Across the room, surrounded by a semicircle of men in tuxedos, stood Vivienne Harlow. Even if Caleb hadn't memorized her face from photographs, he would have known her immediately. She was the nucleus around which the entire event orbited. The Harlow family had donated the wing of the hospital being celebrated tonight. Their name was etched into the hospital's foundation, just as it was etched into the skyline of the city with their real estate empire. Vivienne wore a simple black dress that probably cost more than Caleb's car. Her dark hair was pulled back severely, emphasizing cheekbones that looked sharp enough to cut glass. She wasn't smiling. The men around her were smiling too much. Caleb checked his watch. He'd give it 10 more minutes. Vivienne Harlow had perfected the art of the public smile, lips curved upward, teeth showing just enough, eyes engaged but not too warm. It was a smile that satisfied photographers and board members alike. It was the smile she'd worn in the hospital wing dedication photos earlier that day. That smile had vanished 20 minutes ago when Lawrence Kensington had cornered her by the champagne fountain. "Your father would be disappointed," Kensington said, swirling amber liquid in a crystal tumbler. "The board vote is next week, and you're still playing with your little charity projects." "My father built this company by understanding that reputation matters," Vivienne replied. Her voice was steady, but her fingers tightened around her clutch. "The hospital wing is hardly a little project. Your father built this company by being ruthless when necessary," Kensington corrected. He was joined by 2 other board members, both men who had known her since childhood and still spoke to her as if she were 10 years old. "The West Side development needs to move forward. The holdouts need to be removed." "Those holdouts are families who've lived there for generations," Vivienne said. "We can modify the plans too." "Your sentimentality is becoming a liability," interrupted Richard Mercer, the oldest board member. Perhaps if you had a husband to advise you on these matters. The circle tightened around her. More men joined, board members, investors, family friends who'd known her father. The air grew thick with cologne and condescension. The vote is next week, Kensington repeated. Your father left you his shares, but he left us his wisdom. If you can't honor that, perhaps it's time to consider your position. Vivienne felt her chest constrict. The threat was clear. They were moving to push her out of her own company, using her father's memory as leverage. The ballroom suddenly felt airless. Faces blurred around her. She had prepared arguments, financial projections, alternative development plans, but they weren't listening. They had never intended to listen. Gentlemen, Kensington raised his voice slightly, addressing the growing circle. I think we should discuss calling an emergency board meeting before next week's vote. Perhaps tomorrow. She's with me. The voice cut through the circle like a blade. It wasn't loud, but it carried a weight that made conversation stop. The men turned. A stranger stood at the edge of their circle. Average height. Brown hair cut short. A suit that wasn't bespoke. He didn't belong in this room, yet he stood with the stillness of someone who knew exactly where he was and why. Excuse me? Kensington's voice dripped with disdain. I said, the man repeated, each word measured and calm, she's with me. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Vivienne felt her body go rigid. The stranger's eyes met hers briefly, steady, unafraid, before returning to Kensington. This is a private conversation, Mercer said. I don't know how you got in here, but... Ms. Harlow agreed to meet with me at 8:30, the stranger continued in that same dangerous calm. It's 8:32. I don't like to waste time, and I don't appreciate others wasting hers. Vivienne couldn't move. For the first time in her adult life, she had no prepared response. The man was lying, she had no appointments tonight, yet something in his demeanor made her want to play along. The circle of men had widened slightly, creating space between her and them. I don't believe we've met, Kensington said, extending his hand with a plastic smile. Lawrence Kensington, Harlow Enterprises. The stranger didn't take the offered hand. Caleb Matthews. The name hung in the air. Kensington's hand slowly lowered. Matthews? Mercer's voice had changed. Not the same Matthews who... The same, Caleb said. He turned to Vivienne. We should go. Your time is valuable. Vivienne found herself nodding. Her body moved on autopilot, stepping away from the group toward this stranger who had materialized like a shield. The circle parted for her. No one tried to stop her. Ms. Harlow, Kensington called after her, his voice strained. We'll continue this discussion tomorrow. Caleb Matthews turned slightly. No, he said simply. You won't. The air conditioning raised goosebumps on Vivienne's bare arms as Caleb led her toward a quiet corner of the ballroom. The weight of 300 stairs pressed against her back. Her Louboutins clicked against marble, the sound unnaturally loud in her ears. The silk of her dress suddenly felt constricting. They reached a small table partially hidden behind a massive floral arrangement. Caleb pulled out a chair for her. She sat, still moving mechanically. Who are you? She finally managed. Exactly who I said I am, he replied, taking the seat across from her. Caleb Matthews. That doesn't answer my question. It answered theirs. His eyes, hazel with flecks of gold, assessed her calmly. Are you all right? The simple question broke through her shock. Vivienne Harlow, who ran a multi-billion-dollar company, who had negotiated with prime ministers and presidents, who had never shown weakness in a boardroom, felt tears threatening. She blinked them back furiously. Why did they react that way to your name? She asked instead of answering. Caleb's mouth curved slightly. Not quite a smile. I used to work in risk assessment and security. For people who have a lot to lose. You were a bodyguard? No. I was the person who told them what they needed to be guarded against. He glanced toward the group of men, who were now huddled in conversation, occasionally looking their way. Sometimes the greatest threats come from inside. Vivienne followed his gaze. They want to force me out. Use my father's shares to take control. I know. She turned back to him sharply. How could you possibly know that? Because I've been investigating them for the past 3 months. The world seemed to tilt beneath Vivienne. She gripped the edge of the table. Investigating? Who hired you? You did. That's not possible. Not you personally, Caleb conceded. Your assistant, Claire. She was concerned about unusual activity after your father's death. Board members meeting secretly. Financial records being accessed. She hired me through channels that wouldn't raise flags. Vivienne's mind raced. Claire had been her father's assistant before becoming hers. Fiercely loyal. Always 3 steps ahead. Why are you telling me this now? Here. Because they moved up their timeline. The emergency meeting Kensington mentioned wasn't part of the original plan. They're panicking. Caleb leaned forward slightly. I have everything you need to stop them. Financial records. Recordings. Proof that Kensington and Mercer have been systematically undermining projects you support while funneling company resources to their personal investments. Vivienne's training took over. She straightened her spine, her mind clicking into strategic mode. I'll need to call my lawyers tonight. The documentation has to be. It's handled, Caleb interrupted gently. Your legal team has everything. They're preparing to present it at the board meeting they're trying to schedule for tomorrow. The timing will be perfect. For the first time that evening, Vivienne felt her lips curve into a genuine smile. You've been busy. It's my job. He checked his watch. I should go. My daughter is waiting. Your daughter? Emma. She's 7. Something softened in his expression. She's in the car with a sitter. I told her I'd only be an hour. The image was so incongruous with everything else about him that Vivienne found herself momentarily speechless again. You brought your daughter to a stakeout? Not a stakeout. A delivery. He stood. The information has been delivered. My job is done. Wait. Vivienne rose quickly. I don't understand. Why reveal yourself now? You could have just sent the files. Caleb's eyes moved past her, scanning the room in a practiced sweep. Because I saw what was happening. They were surrounding you. Isolating you. His gaze returned to her. No one should have to stand alone against that kind of pressure. 6 months earlier. Caleb sat beside the hospital bed, holding his wife's hand. The machines beeped in their merciless rhythm. Sarah's breathing was shallow, her once vibrant face now gaunt. "Promise me something," she whispered. "Anything." His voice broke on the word. "Show Emma what matters. Not just with words." He squeezed her hand. "I will." The world can be so cruel, Caleb. So many people with power using it to hurt others. Her eyes, still bright despite everything, fixed on his. "You have a gift. You see through people. You're not afraid to stand up." "Sarah." "No, listen. You left that work because of me. Because I worried. But Emma needs to see who you really are." Her fingers tightened weakly around his. "Promise me you'll show her what courage looks like. What it means to protect people who need it." Caleb pressed his forehead against their clasped hands. "I promise. Daddy." Emma's voice cut through Caleb's thoughts as he approached the car parked 2 blocks from the Ritz-Carlton. The sitter, a college student from their building, looked up from her phone with relief. "Right on time," she said. "She's been very patient." Emma bounced in her booster seat, her dark curls, so like her mother's, springing with each movement. "Did you do it? Did you help the lady?" Caleb smiled as he slid into the driver's seat. "I did." "Was she nice? Was she scared? Did the bad guys run away?" "Emma," he chuckled, breathed between questions. The sitter gathered her things. "Same time next week, Mr. Matthews?" "No," Caleb said, surprising himself. This was the last job. After the sitter had gone, Caleb turned to look at his daughter. "The lady was very brave," he told her. "And yes, the bad guys backed down." "Because of you," Emma said with absolute certainty. "Because sometimes all it takes is one person willing to stand up." He reached back to tap her knee. "Remember what Mom used to say?" Emma's face grew solemn. "True courage is being scared but doing the right thing anyway." "That's right." "Were you scared, Daddy?" Caleb thought about the room full of powerful men, about the billions of dollars at stake, about the woman who had stood frozen in their midst. "No," he said honestly. "Not this time." The knock on Caleb's apartment door came 3 days later. He wasn't expecting anyone. Emma was at school. He approached cautiously, checking the peephole. Vivienne Harlow stood in his hallway. He opened the door. She looked different in jeans and a simple blouse, her hair loose around her shoulders. More human. Still unmistakably wealthy, the watch on her wrist probably cost more than his rent, but less untouchable. "How did you find me?" he asked. "I'm rich, not helpless," she replied with a slight smile. "May I come in?" He stepped aside. The apartment was small but neat. Books lined the walls. A child's drawings were taped to the refrigerator. Vivienne took it all in with a quick glance. "The board meeting was yesterday," she said. "I know. Kensington resigned. Mercer is facing criminal charges for embezzlement." She turned to face him. "You didn't just save my position. You saved my father's legacy." Caleb shrugged. I just provided information. You did the rest. Why didn't you tell me who you really are? He raised an eyebrow. I told you exactly who I am. Caleb Matthews. Former CIA counterintelligence. The man who exposed the Westbrook financial scandal that sent 3 senators to prison. She crossed her arms. The man who disappeared from public view 5 years ago when his wife got sick. He was silent for a moment. You did your homework. Like I said. Rich, not helpless. Her expression softened. I'm sorry about your wife. Thank you. He moved to the kitchen. Coffee? Please. As he prepared the coffee, she wandered to the bookshelf, examining titles. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone more intimidating. Caleb smiled slightly as he handed her a mug. That's why I was good at my job. No one saw me coming. They sat at his small kitchen table. Sunlight streamed through the window, catching in her dark hair. I came to offer you a job, Vivienne said. Head of security for Harlow Enterprises. The salary would be substantial. No. She blinked, clearly not used to immediate rejection. You haven't heard the terms. I don't need to. I don't do that work anymore. Because of your daughter? Because of a promise I made to my wife. He took a sip of coffee. I'll consult occasionally. One-off jobs like yours. But my priority is Emma. Vivienne studied him. The night at the gala. You said I was with you. Why did you step in like that? Caleb was quiet for a moment, considering. My daughter was watching. Not literally, she was in the car. But I've been teaching her about standing up for people. It would have been hypocritical to watch you being cornered and do nothing. So it was a teaching moment? Partly. He met her eyes. And partly because no one should have to face that kind of intimidation alone. Not even billionaire heiresses. Vivienne's laugh was unexpected, warm and genuine. Fair enough. She set down her mug. What if I offered you a different position? Consultant. Your own hours. Work from home when you need to. Why are you so determined to hire me? Because you're the first person in years who didn't want something from me. She leaned forward. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Everyone wants access or money or power or connections. You stepped in to help me, then walked away expecting nothing in return. Caleb considered her words. I was paid for the investigation. That's not what I'm talking about, and you know it. Vivienne's gaze was direct, unflinching. You had leverage. Information. Access to me at a vulnerable moment. Most people would have used that. The silence between them was comfortable, thoughtful. Outside, the sounds of the city filtered through the window, car horns, distant sirens, the rhythm of ordinary life continuing. I'll consider the consultant position, Caleb said finally. Send me the details. I'll need flexibility for Emma's schedule. Vivienne nodded, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Of course. She stood, gathering her purse. Thank you for the coffee. At the door, she paused. One more thing. The name Matthews, it made quite an impression on Kensington and Mercer. But I checked. Your birth name was Caleb Mitchell. You changed it when you left the agency. Caleb's expression remained neutral. Matthews was my wife's maiden name. Emma and I took it after Sarah died. Fresh start. So you weren't trading on your reputation that night at the gala? No. Vivienne tilted her head, studying him with new appreciation. You bluffed them. You had no idea they would recognize the name. For the first time, Caleb smiled fully, a flash of warmth that transformed his face. Sometimes perception is more powerful than reality. They believed I had power over them, so I did. A valuable lesson, Vivienne said softly. One of many my wife taught me. He opened the door. I'll look for your email about the consultant position. After she left, Caleb stood at the window, watching as Vivienne emerged from the building below. No driver waited for her. She hailed a taxi herself, sliding into the back seat with casual grace. The yellow cab merged into traffic, becoming just another vehicle in the endless flow of the city. His phone buzzed with a text from Emma's teacher. Emma shared a story in class today about her dad helping a lady who was being bullied by bad men. Quite the imagination. Just wanted to check if everything is okay at home, Caleb smiled, typing back, everything's fine. Just teaching her about standing up for people who need it, He glanced at the clock. 2 hours until school pickup. Enough time to review the files he'd kept on the Harlow case, the ones containing information he hadn't shared with Vivienne yet. Information about her father's final days and decisions that had been hidden from her. Information she deserved to know, but wasn't ready to hear. Some truths required the right moment. Some protections extended beyond a single intervention. Caleb closed the file on his laptop and instead opened a document titled, Emma, Future College Fund. The balance was modest but growing. Perhaps it was time to consider a more stable income source. Perhaps Vivienne's offer deserved serious consideration. Not for the money. Not for the connection to power. But because sometimes the most unexpected alliances formed in moments of vulnerability. Because sometimes standing up for someone created a bridge neither party had anticipated crossing. Because Sarah would have approved. True power isn't in a bank account, it's in the courage to speak up when everyone else is silent. Have you ever stood up for someone when it was difficult? Tell us your story in the comments, If this story touched your heart and reminded you how powerful a parent's love can be, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue sharing emotional and inspiring stories like this one. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload, and feel free to share this video with someone who believes in love, sacrifice, and second chances.